Woo! Talk about some big news. Let's talk about Nintendo not looking to join the arm race with Microsoft and Sony on acquiring studios. I'm going to read you guys the story and I'm going to share you my own opinion. And I definitely need you guys to go down in the comment section below and let me know what you think of this. Is this the right move for Nintendo as a business? Let's get into it here, guys. While Sony and Microsoft made headlines January for acquiring Bungie and Activision Blizzard respectively, Nintendo has been largely silent on the topic of consolidation in the gaming industry. In the latest investor Q&A, question and answer, Nintendo president addressed the matter and spoke about how the company would rather prioritize investing in the developers that it already owns, and explains in a need to retain the Nintendo DNA of these studios. Let me repeat that because I kind of messed up. Nintendo president addressed the matter and spoke about how the company would rather prioritize investing in the developers that it already owns, and explaining a need to retain the Nintendo DNA of its studios. That's big right there, guys. The Nintendo DNA is a problem as well. Let's just be realistic about this. I'm gonna give you the negative aspect of this. The Nintendo DNA is having pretty bad online services. Arcade ways of adding friends, talking to friends, messaging friends on their internet platforms. It's things like that. Arcade ways of inviting friends. But Nintendo has games like Breath of the Wild that make their own IPs like Nintendo Arceus in the open world look like, well, pretty bad. Pretty bad. So Nintendo on one hand has this culture of like unbelievable cool shit. And then the other culture, they're like, make money, Pokemon, put out these Pokemon games every year. Niantic, come on, put out a game, Game Freak, put out a game every year. Get these games out, we're gonna make a lot of money. Not the bare minimum, but put some effort, but not the complete polish. We're gonna get some money. That's part of the culture. Let's not twist it out here. Nintendo is not perfect with the way they develop games. Yes, they do have a culture where there's a kind of Nintendo magic to their titles. I mean, Smash Brothers is just unbelievable fun. The Fire Emblem games, there is a little bit of just kind of excitement that comes to me when I see a new Fire Emblem game being released. Even the Warrior titles coming from other companies developing them, I'm like, oh cool, you get to see these characters in cool cutscenes. But there's some negative aspects to the Nintendo DNA. A lot of the titles, they don't want to do voice acting. And it's not because they can't afford it, obviously. It's just because their DNA must have that culture in there. And I'm not trying to be saying like, oh, Link has to have a voice. No, I'm not getting into that argument. There's a lot of Nintendo games in the modern era, or even the era before this one, which was modern as well, where they just decide like, no, we do not need to have this long, drawn-out conversation running from one person to the next one. Look at the new Pokemon game, and it's just text. And it's like, man, I would love to hear some passion, some action, some enthusiastic voice talking behind some of these lines. I would love to see some easy online accessibility, integration with YouTube, sharing your videos really easily that way. I mean, yes, you could share a few seconds of a video on the Switch, and it could all be improved. And I think outside companies being incorporated into Nintendo could help with that. I love that they want to stay how Nintendo is, but there's nothing saying that they need to hire just developers. They could go technical. There's a lot of studios out there are very more on the technical side of things, very much more on the technology about game engines. Like there's game engines out there that Nintendo could acquire. There's software out there. There's talent out there in that department. Maybe that's what they should use the money to acquire, stuff like that, where their backbone of graphics, optimization, and stuff like that will be a cool thing. I'm not trying to say change how Mario Kart works. All I'm trying to say is that the loading screen between going in to play an online match of Mario Kart Deluxe 8 to actually getting into the game, and maybe if you want to invite a friend or play with somebody on the same couch, to play online, there's a lot of ways to make all that a lot more streamlined. Maybe if I want to send a message to somebody, I would love to do that, guys. I want to play the Fire Emblem games, play them all online. It's the modern era, and they need to fix their subscription service. The subscription service is honestly just bad. Let's call it what it is. Nintendo's online subscription service is bad. So yes, there's some great stuff coming from Nintendo DNA. They got the IP, they got the game franchise, they got the know-how to make fun games, but the polish is not always there, and those extra little features always have been a disappointment for me as a Nintendo gamers from I was a small child. And I hope that changes eventually, right? Will it? I don't know. But if Nintendo wants to stick to their guns and just stick into what they're already good at and what they have, hopefully it works out. They know how to adapt. Even when they've done bad, they've come back. They've been around for 132 years, and I don't see Nintendo going away anytime soon, and I don't see them selling out to any other company anytime soon unless something drastically bad happens. We'll see what happens over the next few years. Because if Microsoft and Sony become way too much of a problem for Nintendo, and if people don't just lap up the Switch like, oh, switch this, switch this, switch this, yeah, we don't have to always, I'm not buying Arceus. Go look at some of the more critical review of Arceus. There's some problems with that game. And I'm at the point, as much as I love Pokemon, their DNA might be fun. The core Pokemon catch 'em all is fun. But I'm not willing to use a little time I have to play video games to deal with the bad. And Nintendo's bad with some of their games are just enough bad that I'm like, the $60 I was going to spend on, buying Arceus or whatever it was, I'm going to put it towards Dying Light 2. Because I'm like, I'd rather be frustrated with that game if that has frustration than frustrated with the things I see that's frustrating for me with Arceus. Now, it's not to say that Arceus couldn't be a better game, or maybe if it was a lower price, $30, I'll be okay with it, but Nintendo didn't want to put extra money into that. And that's a lot of things what I see with a lot of Nintendo games. Sometimes they just don't go that extra little mile on the edges to make the game just like Mario Odyssey. These, there's some games they will put that effort in, and then there's some games you're like, why? Why did you do this? Alright, now I'm ranting. So, enough of this video. Nintendo ain't buying anybody to change your culture. Doesn't mean that they won't buy anybody at all. Like I said, they could buy tech, but we'll see what happens over the next few years. They're just not going to join that arm race of buying this, that, and I don't actually think they need to. The honest truth is, you out there watching this video, guess what? If you're a Nintendo fan, you're going to have 2 different Switches, bunch of different Joy-Cons. You're going to buy this shit, man. You just are. Till next time, peace out.